How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He would give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing cross, the Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one, bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon the cross, my guilt upon His shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held Him there, until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no powers, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart, His wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart, His wounds have paid my ransom. Hi, it's good to see you. I wish I could actually see you. I really do. I really do better when I am with people. I am an extrovert. I am totally out of my element with this COVID-19 thing. And somebody said, my son told me the other day that he heard that for extroverts, COVID-19 is a disaster. For introverts, there's just people with less guilt. So, but I'm an extrovert. I'm missing people. I did get to play some music with my family this week, and our town had tried to do a drive-in movie. There's only 200 people here. They tried to do an outdoor drive-in movie on a big plastic blow-up theater, and they advertised it on County 10, and people came from everywhere. Over 500. I don't know how many people, but they ended up getting turned away because there wasn't even enough room at the rodeo grounds for all of these people, because that's how desperate people are to see other people. And I ran into some people while I was waiting outside at the coffee shop, served some coffee, and ran into some people, and a couple of my athletes that are just brokenhearted because it's their senior year and they can't run, and I'm brokenhearted for them because they are like state champions this year. They were second last year, probably first this year, and they're just brokenhearted. But I got to see them, and it was just so good to see them, and I was just missing spending time with them, and missing my students, missing the people of our church. I'm just missing everything. And so at least when I'm here doing this, I just pretend that I see your faces, and that helps me to do this, because it's hard for me to talk to nothing I just think of you when I do this. So last week my mom did love it that I didn't wear my hat. She was like, "Oh, you look so good," but sorry, Mom. I felt naked and I forgot all my memory verses. So anyway, my hat is back. I'll wear it again later. But my husband and I, he was running the field, disc in the field today. So we got started late. We're doing a late night. This is like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, trying to get this in because people like to watch this on Saturday. So it's going to be a little late tomorrow and I'm a little tired tonight, but I wanted you to have it on Saturday because a lot of people like to watch it on Saturday. So I'm thinking of you. So anyway, the verses that I missed last week were bad company corrupts good character, and that's from 1 Corinthians 15:33. And then it was Lord Acton, which is a British historian that said absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is so true. And then Proverbs 22:6 is train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So those are the verses I used last time when we were talking about raising kids. We're talking about Saul, and we're in Samuel 13 right now. We talked about how Saul started out really well. But remember, Israel wanted a king. God didn't want him to have a king. He just wanted to have him as king and then to use prophets for mouthpiece, like Samuel and the judges. Samuel being the last, and in my opinion, the best judge. But the people wanted a king, so God gave them what they want. And theologians differ between whether God wanted to have a king or they just wanted a king, and so God gave them what they want. But I think the Bible really points to the fact that he didn't want them to have a king, but they needed someone to follow, and so he said, "Okay, have your king." And he started out by having a king who was humble, and started serving God and gave glory to God when there was victory, and gave glory to God, but it didn't stay that way. So in Samuel 13, there was another detail I forgot last week, really important one, because God's given the people what they want, hoping they'll do the right thing. But Saul, who was the first king of Israel, was also what it says one of the handsomest men in Israel, and a head taller than everyone else. So we're looking at Saul being somebody like Chris Hemsworth, Thor, leading the army, so he just looked like a king. So people just wanted to follow him. And then after Samuel worked with him and talked to him, he had the power of God and he acted with a lot of authority. So he was just the guy to follow. So it started off really well because at first he loved God and was following God, and that went well. And it starts here in chapter 13. You get that he's probably about 50 because he became king when he was handsome 30-year-old, and he's probably still handsome. He's still tall. He's around 50 now. We don't know. It doesn't really say, but we know he has a son. And he had several sons, but one of them that was a cunning warrior who loved God. So you get the idea that maybe Samuel mentored this kid named Jonathan. But he was a young warrior, and he was very brave, and he always trusted God. And he came up with some great ideas, this young son of Saul, Jonathan. And he attacked, he got together his men. Saul had 3,000 men and Jonathan had 1,000. And he took his men and he went and attacked the Philistines and took the garrison at Geba, which was a major accomplishment that Jonathan did. Well, here's interesting. This is where we see Saul beginning to fall. Saul sent out the word that he had conquered this garrison instead of giving honor to his own son. So I find that really interesting because he did not give honor to Jonathan. And then he was sent out this kind of a bragging message that Saul took this garrison, Saul's coming to take you down, and inciting anyone who was still inside Philistine lands to revolt against the Philistines and join Saul. So instead of just keeping peace on the border, taking a major garrison, making the enemy respect you, he incited them into this war. And so they were so angry that they got everybody together. And the Bible said that they had chariots and they had armies, and that it looked like the sands of the sea coming after them. So he incited this army. So all of the people, many of the men of Israel, and it's interesting, it said that the men of Israel did not have a blacksmith. So they had like farm tools and things that they would use on the farm to cut their meat, to cut their field. All of those kind of things were what they used to go to war. And it's very interesting, they did not have blacksmiths at this point. So it said when they went to sharpen their farm tools, which they also used for war, they had to go and find a blacksmith among the Philistines. And it is said here that only Jonathan and Saul had swords, which I think is really interesting. So here they were winning wars with farm tools. So this was a God thing, that they had this power, and Jonathan was definitely a great leader. Saul, this is the beginning of his downfall. And so when all of the men that are part of the Israelites see these men coming, they become afraid. Now, they should have known, and if Saul was a good leader, he would have just reminded him. He would have given him a Braveheart speech. Remember that we've won with God on our side. It doesn't matter if there's 300 of us, just like in Gideon. We're going to win this battle, but he didn't. He didn't rise up and do the Braveheart speech like he should have, like God called him to do. So the men were afraid when they saw the armies coming, because God was on their side. They didn't have to be afraid. But they saw them coming. They began sneaking away, hiding up in the mountains. And Saul saw them. Now Saul, he was waiting for Samuel. Anytime the Israelites went to war, they had to have the priest come out, and he had to consecrate himself, do all these things, and do the sacrifice, and pray to God for leadership, pray for protection, and pray for wisdom. And Samuel was coming to do that, coming out to join Saul. And he was probably going through all the consecration, all the things that a priest has to do, seeking God, falling on his face before God before they go to war. Well, after 7 days, Saul is just watching all of his soldiers leaving and hiding. And he gets really impatient, and he makes a major mistake. And he did the sacrifice by himself. And that is breaking so many laws of God, the laws of consecration, the laws of calling on the man of God to lead you. He just broke so many things. And when Samuel finally got there, he was just seeing him finish the sacrifice. Samuel says to him, "What have you done? What have you done?" And I think he's sad. I think that Samuel really cared about Saul, and you see this later. But he's like, "What have you done?" And he already knew this was going to happen. It was already just a test of what Saul was going to do, because he said, if you had waited, if you had trusted God, your kingdom would have been established forever. But he said, because you cannot wait for God, your kingdom will be taken and given to a man after God's own heart. And we already know, those of us who've read the Bible know that's David. And so at that point, he decides Saul is not going to be king. He does tell him, you're going to be king till you die, but then there's going to be another king after you. And he's a man after God's own heart. So it's really interesting that we would come to this section of the Bible today. I want to share something with you. The Chronological Life Application Study Bible. I really like this Bible. It's by Tyndale Publishers. It has a passage in the footnotes on this section that's amazing. I wanted to read it to you, just a direct quote. It says, "It is difficult to trust God when you feel your resources slipping away. When Saul felt that time was running out, he became impatient with God's timing. In thinking that the ritual was all he needed, he substituted the ritual for faith in God. When faced in a difficult decision, don't allow impatience to drive you to disobey God. When you know what God wants, follow the plan regardless of the consequences. God often uses delays to test our obedience. And wow, Saul really got it wrong, trusting in the ritual and not in God. Boy, what kind of rituals do we trust in? What rituals are we used to putting our faith in? Are we putting our faith in God? We really got to think about that. Who are we trusting right now? And like I said, many of us are completely out of our elements right now. I should be in my classroom. I should be out on the field coaching. Day like tomorrow, we should be at a big meet, and I should be camping out with my kids, and they should be becoming state champions right now, and I'm missing that. I'm out of my element in so many ways, and I should be able to see your face and not have to talk to a camera. But I'm trusting God, and patience has never been one of my best virtues, and my husband, I'm sure, will attest to that. And I'm just kind of one of those people. Let's just get this done. Let's do it now. Let's get it done. And I have at times, tried to rushed ahead of God, and I've just had to really learn that we do the dumbest things when we're feeling insecure, right? Satan works with our pride. We do the dumbest things. I mean, think about junior high, or now they call it middle school. Think of the dumb things you did in junior high just to feel belonging and have friends. Dumb stuff, I see it all the time with kids. And in high school, the things you do, things you won't wear, things you will, or the things just to fit in, this crazy insecurity. I love it when I see a kid rise to be a leader and just be one of those people that, like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And you should just follow me. And it's just so great when kids become confident in themselves as people, and mostly when they know God, the confidence they have in knowing Jesus, that is just amazing. So when I see that in people, it is just great when they just rise up and say, I'm going to do this, and I don't care what people think. It's just beautiful. But times like this make all of us insecure, and when we are feeling powerless, that's when we can fall into bad things. We can fall into drugs and alcohol. They were talking on the news today how 2 people who were serving in the medical field, I think it was New York, 2 people killed themselves, young people. And they were just working really hard, and they were mentally stressed, and they were dealing with a lot of strain, and they just ended their own lives. I can't even imagine the stress people are in, and I'm not making light of it. I'm not looking at people and just saying, just trust God, think positive, because that's trite and not coming from a good place. I remember when I was in a deep depression once, and God would amazingly send people along my way, and a couple times, people, like one time my mom got me a book, and she meant well, but it was a guy who was just wealthy and healthy, and he's like, just think positive, and I just could not even read the book because I didn't feel like he knew anything of where I was coming from. And I was like, I can't listen to this right now because this person doesn't understand the angst that I'm in right now. And so I just want you to know, as we're talking, that I am not coming from this place of beauty and wealth and excellence, and just, I'm coming from a place of pain too. And I am telling you that the only thing that we can really trust is God. That is the one thing. And in the course of my life, going through really bad things, you resonate with people who've suffered, right? As well. And I think that God allows his people to suffer so that we can look at people and go, I will help you. I want to help you. I have been there. And there is a God who answers your prayers and hears what you're feeling. And I'm not coming from a place that I'm better than you. I'm coming from a place where I have been there, right? And so I'm not giving you this trite offering of, yeah, just trust Jesus. I'm telling you, you can trust him, and he is trustworthy. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And people, if you can look at people's behavior, you can really see when people are feeling insecure. For example, profanity, for example, is often used by people feeling insecure. And they use it when they feel the most insecure, and they use it to get either attention or power. For whatever reason, profanity makes people feel powerful. So people who are really powerless use a lot of it. And so it's really interesting to me, unless you've been raised by truckers and that's just all you know. And I know some people like that. When people use profanity, they use it to gain power. It's interesting. So when you see them, you're like, wow, that person is really feeling insecure right now with what they're doing with their life. It's interesting. And look at Hollywood. Boy, do they need power and attention? I think so, because they're just getting really carried away with their ways to get attention and power. And something to think about. Why did they need to do that? Even in any kind of an art, if you need to be risque or use profanity to get powerful, to get people to watch you, are you really that good? Are you really that interesting? Are you really that good of an actor or songwriter or anything if you got to talk that way? That's what people do when they're feeling powerless, if you look at their lives. And people do a lot of things when they feel powerless, drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of people turning to a lot of things just because they're lonely, just because they're stressed, just because they lost their jobs, just because, as Saul said when, in this thing quoted here, when you feel your resources are slipping away, will you trust God? Will you trust him? Not easy to do. And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, like exercise, you can trust him. Coming from a place of suffering, he's the only all trustworthy. I mean, people are great and people are awesome. I have hundreds of trustworthy people in my life, but people are people, and God, and they can't be everywhere at the same time. They can't be for everybody at the same time, but God is there. He's there, and he answers his promises. And so I wanted to leave you a couple of verses. My dad really likes the book of Hebrews, and he really likes chapter 11, which talks about, now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. So we don't see, it's not all tangible, but we know God. We know the pattern of his character. We know he has our backs, but we have to trust him. And all of chapter 11 in Hebrews goes, by faith we know that God created the universe. By faith Abel, by faith Enoch, by faith Noah, by faith Abraham, and on and on and on and on. And even those people didn't see, they just saw a glimpse of what God was doing. They saw a glimpse of how he was using them, but they didn't even get to see it all, but they still did what God called them to do. And then here's this verse, take it back a little bit to Hebrews 23:35. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a very little while, seems like forever, but in just a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith. And he who shrinks back, I will not be pleased with him. But we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who believe and are saved. And this was a book of Hebrews, was written to the early Christians, and teaching them how to live by faith. And many of them were being persecuted and sent to the arena and persecuted for being Christians. So the Bible was written by a lot of people who were persecuted, and all of us will be persecuted if we're Christians. But the righteous will live by faith. And so I'm telling you, I'm praying for you. Go to the Word this week, read Samuel, read some Hebrews, and know that no matter what you're going through, God will deliver you if you trust him, if you rest in him, if you put your faith in him. Even though things are slipping away, we've got to put our trust in him. He He is worthy. And I'm speaking from a place of suffering. My best songs, my best things I've ever done that God has helped me to do, I did out of suffering. I've grown more. I've learned more. I help people better because I felt some pain. And so, because on the other side of that pain was God bringing me through it. And so, I'm just saying, keep your heads up, keep praying, keep trusting. I can't wait to see you again, really. I can't wait to see you again. But I just picture that you're hanging in there, that you're praying, that you're trusting God. I love you, and we'll see you soon. I've been on the mountain where it touches the sky. You can almost see heaven with the naked eye. And I've been in the valley where the river runs, neath the shaded tree, sheltered from the sun. But here in the desert, it's sun and dry, and I am tired and oh so thirsty, but my soul ain't gonna die, 'cause the one who walks beside me on the mountain peak, oh, he's right here in the desert, holding on to me. But I've been in the garden where the flowers bloom, and I've tasted the fruit, I smell the sweet perfume. And I've been in the fields where the harvest grows, swaying like a river flowing to and fro. But here in the desert, it's hot and dry, and I am tired and oh so thirsty, but my soul ain't gonna die. There's the one who walks beside me on the mountain peak. Oh, he's right here in the desert, holding on to me. Well, I've been where the waves crash on my feet, watch the sun go down upon the deep blue sea. And I've been in the aspen when they change to gold, waking in the breeze, how they stir the soul. But here in the desert, it's hot and dry, and I am tired and oh so thirsty, but my soul ain't gonna die. There's the one who walked beside me on the mountain peak. Oh, he's right here in the desert, holding on to me. And the one who walked beside me on the mountain peak, oh, he's right here in the desert, holding on to me.
about a you're a